ITA for calling out my golden child stepsister at her engagement party after she stole my wedding ideas, announced her wedding date before mine, and made my life miserable for 20 years? All right, here we go. I, 34 female, have been putting up with my stepsister, Sarah, 31 female, and her over-the-top selfishness since we were kids. My dad married her mom when I was 13. Melanie, 60 female, a few years after my mom passed. From the start, it was clear Sarah and Melanie were a package deal, and I was the extra baggage. Sarah was always the favorite, always the center of attention, and Melanie made sure everyone knew it. I was grieving my mom and just trying to figure out how to exist in this new family. But Melanie was too busy gushing over Sarah's every move to notice. If Sarah got a lead role in the school play, I was told I should be more outgoing. If I got straight A's, Melanie would bring up how Sarah was more well-rounded. Sarah, of course, ate it up. She wasn't just spoiled, she was calculating. She'd sabotage me every chance she got, and Melanie would sweep it under the rug. Once, when I was 15, I saved up my babysitting money to buy a dress for a school dance. Sarah borrowed it without asking and ruined it, spilling nail polish all over it. Melanie's response? "It's just a dress, Ella. Don't make such a big deal out of it." As adults, Sarah's behavior only got worse. She's the type of person who steals credit for other people's ideas, lies to get ahead, and plays the victim whenever she's caught. Meanwhile, I've worked hard to build my career, buy a home, and plan my dream wedding with my fiancé, Mark 36 male. I got engaged last year, and Sarah immediately started inserting herself into the planning process. She offered to help, which really meant criticizing every idea I had. I wanted a chic navy and silver color scheme. Sarah said it was too boring and suggested something brighter. I wanted to use string lights and candles for a cozy atmosphere. Sarah called it cheap-looking and said I should go big or go home. I planned to have a dessert bar with mini tarts and pastries instead of a traditional cake. Sarah said it was lazy and suggested a huge tiered cake. I stopped sharing my ideas with her because she made me feel like nothing I wanted was good enough. But here's the kicker. Sarah got engaged a few months later, and at her engagement party this past weekend, she announced that her wedding was scheduled 2 months before mine. Let me repeat that. She announced her wedding date at her engagement party, knowing full well my wedding date had been set for months. And it doesn't stop there. She's using all the ideas she criticized me for. Her color scheme? Navy and silver. Her decorations? String lights and candles. Her dessert table? Mini pastries and tarts. It was like she took my wedding plans, dressed them up as her own, and then shoved them in my face. At her engagement party, Melanie couldn't stop raving about how classy and unique Sarah's wedding plans were. I sat there in stunned silence. But then Sarah had the audacity to say during her speech, "I'm so grateful for my family's support and inspiration, especially Ella, who's been such a great example." I saw red. I stood up and said, "Are you serious, Sarah? You mean the ideas you stole from me after tearing them apart? And scheduling your wedding before mine? That's what you call being inspired?" The room went dead silent. Sarah, ever the actress, looked shocked and said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I wasn't letting her get away with it. I said, "You've spent our entire lives making everything about you, and I'm done pretending it's okay. You couldn't even let me have my own wedding without hijacking it." Melanie jumped in, of course, saying I was ruining Sarah's special night. I told her, maybe if you hadn't been enabling this behavior for 20 years, Sarah wouldn't think it's okay to steal someone else's plans and call them her own. My dad tried to calm things down, but I grabbed Mark and left before I said something I'd regret. Now my phone is blowing up. Melanie and Sarah are demanding an apology, saying I embarrassed them in front of their friends and family. My dad says I should just let it go to keep the peace. Even a few relatives are saying I overreacted. But honestly, I'm done. Sarah has walked all over me for decades, and I finally stood up for myself. My fiancé fully supports me, but part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently. So Reddit, Aida? Update 1. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up. Thank you for all the support. It's so validating to know I'm not crazy. To answer a few questions. Why hasn't your dad stepped in? My dad has always been passive when it comes to Melanie. He hates conflict and just lets her do whatever she wants. Why stay in contact? Mostly because of my dad. I care about him, and cutting ties completely feels drastic. But after this, I'm seriously considering going low contact with Melanie and Sarah. Update 2. My dad called me this morning to ask if I'd apologize to smooth things over. I told him, "Dad, I've spent my whole life smoothing things over, and all it's done is let Sarah walk all over me. I'm done." He didn't have much to say after that. Sarah, meanwhile, is posting passive-aggressive Instagram stories about toxic people who can't handle someone else's happiness. Melanie sent me a long text about how I've always been jealous of Sarah and how I ruined what should have been a joyful celebration. I didn't respond. Mark and I are standing firm on our plans, and I'm not letting Sarah's nonsense ruin our day. For now, I'm focusing on the people who actually support me and cutting out the toxicity. Thank you again for all the advice and validation. It means more than you know.
I was left at the altar, and then found out why. Alright, here we go. I, 33 male, was left at the altar 3 months ago by my fiancée, Lily, 31 female. It was the most humiliating, confusing, and infuriating experience of my life. But here's the twist, I just found out why she did it, and somehow, against all odds, things might actually work out. Let me back up. Lily and I had been together for 5 years. She was my best friend, my partner in crime, and the person I thought I was going to grow old with. We moved in together after a year, got engaged 2 years later, and spent the next 2 years planning our dream wedding. It was supposed to be perfect. The day itself started off great. The venue was beautiful, the guests were buzzing, and I was standing at the altar in my suit, nervously excited. When Lily started walking down the aisle, she looked radiant. I couldn't believe how lucky I was to be marrying her, but then, when the officiant asked her if she'd take me as her husband, she froze. At first, I thought she was just overwhelmed. I gave her a little smile and squeezed her hand, but instead of responding, she turned to the crowd and said, "I'm so sorry. I can't do this," and then she ran. Just like that, she left me standing there in front of all our friends and family. My best man tried to diffuse the awkwardness, my mom looked horrified, and my dad just sat there with this weird, grim expression. I had no idea what had just happened. Afterward, Lily disappeared. She left our apartment, blocked me on everything, and refused to talk to anyone who tried to reach out on my behalf. I was devastated, and completely in the dark about why she'd done it. For weeks, I racked my brain. Did I do something wrong? Was there someone else? I couldn't come up with anything that made sense. Then, about a month after the wedding I ran into her cousin, Abby, at the grocery store. Abby looked like she wanted to bolt the second she saw me, but I cornered her and demanded answers. That's when everything started unraveling. Abby hesitated but eventually spilled that Lily had gotten a letter 2 days before the wedding. The letter was from my father's other wife. Yeah. You read that right. Apparently, I'm not my father's legitimate son. My dad had an affair with my mom while he was married to someone else, and I'm the product of that affair. His wife, Nate's mom, decided to drop this bomb on Lily right before our wedding. The letter wasn't just about the affair. It went into detail about how my dad's money, his businesses, and his assets were all tied to his marriage to Nate's mom. As a result, Nate, my older half-brother, was the sole heir to everything, while I wasn't entitled to a single cent. The letter implied that Lily was walking into a marriage with a man who had no real family standing and that I'd hidden the truth from her. I didn't know any of this. After confronting Abby, I went to my dad and demanded answers. He admitted everything. He said he'd kept the affair secret for years to protect his reputation and that Nate's mom had insisted I be treated like the family's dirty little secret. My dad took responsibility by paying for my upbringing, but he never officially claimed me. As for Nate, he's known all along. The smug looks, the passive-aggressive comments about earning my place, it all made sense now. Nate knew that no matter what I did, I was never going to be equal to him in our father's eyes. Lily didn't leave me because of the lack of inheritance or the family drama. She left because she thought I had lied to her. The letter made it sound like I'd known about all of this and had been keeping it from her, hoping she wouldn't find out until after we were married. She felt like she couldn't trust me, and instead of confronting me, she ran. Update 1. After learning all this, I tried reaching out to Lily to explain, but she wouldn't take my calls. I wrote her a letter, ironic, I know, telling her everything. I told her I didn't know about my parents' affair or the inheritance situation and that I would have told her if I had. A week later, she emailed me. It was short but gave me hope. She said she wasn't sure if she could trust me again, but she wanted to talk. We met at a cafe, and for the first time in months, we actually had a conversation. I explained everything, how blindsided I'd been, how much my family had lied to me, and how devastated I was to lose her. She cried when I told her about confronting my dad and how I'd cut ties with him and Nate. She told me she felt overwhelmed and betrayed when she got the letter. She'd wanted to talk to me about it, but the thought of standing in front of everyone at the wedding and wondering if it was all built on lies had been too much. She said she panicked and ran because she didn't know how to process it all. We talked for hours. By the end of it, we weren't fully back together, but we agreed to take things slow and see where it led. Update 2. It's been a few weeks since that conversation, and things are looking up. Lily and I are working on rebuilding our relationship, one step at a time. She's come to a few therapy sessions with me, which has helped us unpack a lot of the damage my family caused. As for my dad and Nate, I've gone no contact with both of them. My dad tried to guilt-trip me, saying, "Family sticks together," but I'm done letting his lies control my life. Lily and I have talked about the future, and while we're not rushing back to wedding planning, I think we'll get there eventually. She told me, "I don't care about your family's money or their drama. I just needed to know that you were honest with me." Now I know you were. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that honesty and communication are everything. Secrets destroy trust, and without trust, nothing else matters. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in months, I feel hopeful. And that's more than I could have asked for.